Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Waltz, I'd like to start with you, and if it's all right, I'd like to start by going a little deeper into something related to what Senator Barrasso asked you a moment ago. Membership of the UN's three-member Board of Auditors is currently shared by three countries: China, France, and Brazil. Now, this is a body that's appointed by the UN General Assembly, of course, and it's tasked with generating accurate accounts of UN funds and UN programs, where the money's going and so forth. But an audit is, of course, by definition, it's only as reliable as its auditor. And the UN's current Board of Auditors not only gives China a seat at the table, but it actually names China as the lead auditor for organizations, including UNRWA, which had terrorists on its payroll, at least through 2023. Some would say longer than that. The environmental program, despite the fact that the environmental program has been exploiting the developing country status to access environmental-related financial assistance for a number of countries, including some that arguably don't deserve that designation. And the UN headquarters, which, as we all know, is based in New York. So my first question to you is, how can we comfortably fund these UN entities, knowing that at some point in the process, our dollars will become commingled into these international accounts, accounts that many of our strategic competitors and right now our pacing threat may be in charge of auditing? But how do we deal with that?
Thank you, Senator Lee, and again, thank you for the kind introduction earlier. I share the concern. If, again, as I take as a first principle, sitting down with my, firefighters, welders, and small business owners and saying, look them in the eye and saying, I know exactly where your dollar is going and it's being well spent. I don't think we could say that at this point. And if it's, it's one thing for it to come out of their hands into the federal government, then it goes from the federal government over to a multinational entity. Then it goes down to an agency, 15 of whom have their own separate boards and separate agendas. And then I know something that's important to the chairman and a number of you, then it gets, in some cases, commingled with other international, like the African Union. Of course, we don't know exactly where it's going. I pointed out earlier, in the early 90s, actually in the Clinton administration, some folks in this body said enough is enough, and we got the closest thing we have, the Office of Internal Oversight and Investigation. It's the closest thing that there is to an IG, right. But it still reports to itself. It's not truly independent, and it's not necessarily just on the money side. If you have whistleblowers that say there's fraud, waste, and abuse, it basically comes back to itself, or even things like sexual abuse out in the UN's peacekeeping forces. Right. We need an actual independent entity that we all have confidence in to understand where this money and other nefarious activities are happening.
Right. And then it becomes sort of like a self-licking ice cream cone. The self-auditing rogue actor within the UN is not necessarily one to be trusted.
The UN's budget has gone from $15 billion to $65 billion in the last 20 years, and I don't think we're getting the commensurate return on our dollar.
Now oftentimes the U.S. has, or at times when the U.S. has considered UN reforms, the conversation is centered on problematic entities and U.S. contributions, which are necessary factors, but don't necessarily capture the full universe of options available to us that translate into leverage and influence at the UN. Decades ago, at the direction of Congress, the State Department started producing an annual report on UN voting practices. This has occurred since 1983, so about 42 years. This has been going on. The report demonstrates that, candidly, the U.S. is outvoted in the vast majority of cases at the UN. It's just how it turns out. Now, despite having this report at our disposal, successive administrations, administration after administration since we've had this report, they have yet to draw much of a correlation between voting coincidences at the UN and the provision of U.S. foreign aid. With the U.S. consistently providing aid to countries who actively and routinely, almost as a matter of course, oppose U.S. positions at the UN. So as the current administration carries out this much needed, very much welcome, long overdue review of U.S. foreign aid so as to recalibrate our aid to our interests, should voting patterns at the UN be used as something of a metric to take into account and to determine and qualify U.S. foreign aid recipients?
Senator, I think it's a fantastic point. It absolutely should be. I'll commit to work with this committee, with the Secretary, to put mechanisms in place that it is. But to your point, if you look at the aid, by the figures I've seen, over $100 billion have gone through UN entities into Africa, and we're looking at between a 29 and 32% voting coincidence rate. So we actually have the highest, a continent with the highest recipient of American workers' money siding with us by far the least. It is completely inverted, and I commit to you to work very hard to use the leverage that only this president could use to reverse that trend.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.